got some reverb. Sorry about that, folks. And I think that's my voice doing that too. So anyway, this is the May session of the Paulten County Zoning Planning Commission. Excuse me. At this time, I would ask somebody to do something with the sound, please. But if you have any mobile devices, cell phones or otherwise, please turn them to silence or off, preferably. I can deal with it if y'all can. Maybe not.
Mr. Chairman, you may just want to ask if people turn the microphones off unless they need to speak.
Yes, please do. All right, I've already asked about audible devices to be turned to silence or off, preferably. In regards to the minutes from the previous session of this body, is there any edits or questions, comments? Then at this time, I will entertain a motion with regard to the previous session from this body.
I make a motion we adopt the February 25th, 2020 meetings minutes.
I have a motion to approve the minutes from the previous session from Mr. Leggett.
Second.
I have a second from this gentleman over here. All in favor? Motion passes 4-0 and 1.
Who made the second, Jim?
Mr. Henson. There's so few of us today. At this time, before we call the first application for consideration, I just want to give people a word of the requirements for this meeting. There will be 15 minutes presented for the applicant. They may use all of that time at the beginning of this meeting or at the beginning of their time, or may conserve some of it for a point of rebuttal for any comments that may come up. The other 15 minutes would be issued to any opposition to the application or the questions, comments, or concerns that someone may have. All comments and all questions need to be directed to the chair, which is me. So please do so. Mr. Robinson.
Thank you, and thank you for everyone being here. It's been a couple months since we've been able to do this, and just hope everyone's been safe. First application is 2020-02 LUP. This application by Jared York for a land use permit to operate a rural business, which involves truck and auto repair in an R2 suburban residential district on a property that's 4.79 acres. The property is located in land lot 864, District 2, Section 3. It's on the south side of Buchanan Highway, also known as State Route 120. It's east of White Oak Cemetery Road. The address is at 4585 Buchanan Highway. It's in Commission Post 2. Recommendation, if it's approved, 4 stipulations, which is printed. And we do have did receive opposition from adjoining property owner. And the applicant is present.
Is the applicant or the agent? If they would please come around, sign in, state your name, and address your comments to the chair. You'll have 15 minutes to speak. You may use all of that time or conserve some for a rebuttal. Questions from this body to either side in this discussion does not count toward either side's time.
Hi, my name is Jared York. I've operated a mobile business for 4 years now in Paulten County, working on diesel trucks and semi-trucks. I got 2 little service trucks, and a lot of what I do is very heavy and awkward, and with the weather don't play right, working in people's lots or on the side of the road. I was hoping to be able to build a shop at my house to work on vehicles as needed, just so I'm can do it safely because I work by myself. I have one person that works with me sometime. He's just part-time. And I've got all the permits and stuff on the building. It's all got a CO signed off. Everything's good to go on it. And now I'm just trying to get this land use permit so I can continue and try to serve Paulten County the best I can.
All right, sir, are you familiar with the 4 listed stipulations been recommended by staff?
Yes, sir.
And you're agreeable to those?
Yes, sir.
This time I'll open it up for questions from the Planning Commission.
Mr. Chip?
So you're working on straight trucks, tractor trailer trucks, so you're working on heavy trucks?
Yes, sir. I say 75% of what I do is like Ford pickup trucks and Dodge pickup trucks, and the other like 25% would be medium duty, like box trucks, like you say, straight trucks, Class 8 over-the-road semi-trucks.
Also, are you just doing maintenance, light duty mechanic work, or you're doing major overhauls?
All I do is just the light duty stuff on the big trucks. I say I've done engines and stuff on the Ford pickups, but on the big trucks, all I do is, at the most, maybe an injector or a turbo or something like that. I do change clutches.
So you're not really doing engine overhauls and
No, sir.
transmission overhauls and things like that?
No, sir.
And you're proposing to use an existing building you already have?
Yes, sir.
Okay, thank you.
So you would be doing light maintenance on, say, the tractor of an 18-wheeler, but you wouldn't
Yes.
have the whole truck down there? You
No.
would have a trailer down
No,
there?
sir.
Okay.
No trailers ever.
Okay, just making sure.
Any other questions from the Planning Commission? Mr. Robinson, you got a comment?
Mr. Chairman, the applicant presented, I have three letters here,
Yes.
and 2 of the letters are from adjoining property owners, a Mr. Cooper and a Miss, I believe it's Keys,
Yeah, keys.
and they have no opposition to it, and these are 2 support letters. A third is a support letter from Kelly Landscaping for character. Just wanted to bring that into the record.
Thank you, Mr. Robinson. Does that bring up any questions from the Planning Commission to the applicant? Board of Commissioners, any questions to the applicant? Thank you very much. You may take your seat unless you have anything further you wish to add.
I think I'm good for now.
All right. You'll have
Thank
some
you.
time conserved in case you need to come back up. And if we do call you back up for questions, that won't count against your time.
Okay. Thank you.
Is there anyone else here that wishes to speak on behalf of this application? Hearing none, is there anyone here that wishes to speak in opposition to this application? Please come forward, sign in, state your name, and address your comments to the chair.
My name is Diane DeBoard. Oh, I'm nervous.
That's all right, take your time.
I know you. I live in front of them, and when I look out my back door, I see this humongous building. And I know they've been working on doing this for a few years now. But my concern is the traffic out on Buckhannon Highway is horrible. You come down a hill, and there's going to be trucks, cars pulling in and out of this road. There's been several accidents, even in front of my driveway, because my driveway is next door to theirs. But my concern is, I did not move out in the country to live next door to a tractor-trailer repair shop. I moved in the country for quiet, peace, and just the general area at all. It's a beautiful, next to me is a beautiful woods. But when I step out on my back porch, all I see is this big, humongous building. And I object to it. I have every objection in the world to it, because it's basically almost in my backyard. And there's no privacy there at all. So I just don't want it there. I mean, I'm sure nothing, I don't know what to do about that, but I don't like it there. It's the noise, the traffic, up and down the driveway, and in the road. I just didn't move there for that. And I moved there before they ever started building it. So I'm just not happy with it. And I would ask if this, and I don't know if there's some way to hide that building. I don't know. Hide it from me, behind me, because that's all I see is that building. If they could plant some trees, something to hide it, if it gets approved. Okay? I just don't, I worry about the diesel fuel. I mean, I can smell it when they start up a truck down there or something working. I can smell fuel. It floats up to my back door. So, the noise factor, and what about, if he's working down there, what about spillage? What about diesel fuel spillage down there? Does the EPA get involved in all this kind of thing that goes on down there? Because I don't know what all they do down there other than what I can hear and smell. And to me, it's just a noise factor, too, and that, like I said, the road out there it's just dangerous for vehicles to be coming and going. And like I said, I've had several accidents in front of my driveway. And I just object to it. That's all I have to say. Thank you.
Is there anyone else that would wish to speak in objection or may have questions, comments, concerns regarding this application? Hearing none, Mr. York, would you like to come back around? I'm sorry. Give that back. In regards to the comments that we just heard, this would be the opportunity to address some of them as far as how you handle spills that may be resulting from your business, the noise that emanates from your business.
Gotcha. Which my hours of operation are from 8 to 5. I don't work on the weekends. It's only Monday through Friday. I don't work on weekends on any commercial vehicles whatsoever. The spills and stuff, I have spill prevention, like kitty litter looking stuff that is meant to catch it and it absorbs it. I sweep everything up, and so nothing goes outside onto anything. It stays on the concrete inside the shop. As part of the application and stuff, it's stated about me putting trees up or something anyway on that property line. As a screen to help, with seeing it and, noise or whatnot. I'm not attempting to bother my neighbors or anything with any of this.
But you are backing into the process a little bit. You're getting the permit after the fact.
Yes, sir. Yeah, I didn't know at the time. So I'm just trying to make everything right now the best I can.
Any other questions to the applicant from the planning commission?
How far is the garage from her house?
I would guess maybe 400 feet, 500 feet. I think you can see it basically on the screen. Hers is the second one over from the left side is her property. And then mine is the one that's kind of got the angle to it going backwards. And that is the garage right where the little kind of L shape. And there's no windows, there's no vents, there's nothing. The shop has been fully insulated. It's got the spray foam in the ceiling to try to keep noise down. It's completely finished inside with plywood to where the only noise that could come out of it if the doors are open would be coming toward the right onto my property on the land beside me.
Are you going to primarily stay a mobile
Yes, sir.
service?
Yes, I still plan on staying on my 2 service trucks and running them on the roads.
And you're agreeable to all the stipulations that we have, the 4 stipulations that you agreed to, with Chris?
Yes.
You still okay with those?
Question for staff. Chris, if you could maybe field this one. The building's location, if my understanding is correct, based on looking at this, it is closer to the property line to basically the north. Am I looking at this right?
I would say that the building out there now is about 50 feet from the west property line.
Okay.
And if I had to ask to Mr. Board's home, it could be 300 to 400 feet.
And as far as the property line goes, the setback, does it meet the setback?
It does meet the
requirements?
it meets the setback.
And there is a requirement for a planted buffer.
That is a stipulation number 4 that we requested.
And as far as regulating the facility's use, particularly as it relates to the concern issued about spillage of oil, whatever fluids may go into a vehicle, who would oversee that? Chris, I'll go ahead and direct that to you. Just
Of course, if we know about it, we would probably take a look at it if we have any complaints or such. I know that he's aware of EPA guidelines on handling oils and fuels and that such material, and you would hope to rely that in good faith that he would be doing that, but if a complaint did come in, we would investigate that.
And nothing that I'm saying is going to prejudice the decision of this body as far as any recommendation it may make to the Board of Commissioners. But I wanted it to be stated that, there is a procedure in place so that if there is any environmental concerns, as was
Oh, yeah. Yes,
brought
sir.
to our attention from your neighbor,
Yes, sir.
that there are means for that to be addressed. And it's something that if this goes forward positively, that does not alleviate you of the responsibility of making sure that you are abiding by those environmental requirements.
Oh, yes, sir.
And again, that is not prejudicing this decision of this body. It's just simply stating if it receives a favorable approval and then is subsequently approved by the Board of Commissioners, it doesn't alleviate you of being a responsible neighbor.
Oh, yeah, of course.
Are there any other questions to the applicant from this board? Sorry, my mic was off. Board of Commissioners?
Mr. York, I'd like to ask you, can you hear me all right?
Yes, sir.
Can you share a drive and entrance with the lady that spoke?
No, sir.
Kind of hard to tell from the aerial.
Now, the driveway goes in front, like to the right side of where my garage is, and goes up closer to the other neighbor on the far side, on the upper right-hand corner.
Now, I read something previously where if you do work on like an 18-wheeler, you park the trailer out on the highway or something?
No, I've never had a trailer in there.
But where, if somebody just brings the diesel?
It's only the front truck. It's just the truck by itself. It's not the trailer. I don't allow them to come in because there's no way to turn it around. And
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions from the Board of Commissioners? Thank you very much. You had one more question. It's not typical that I bring the opposition back up, but these being unusual times, if you have a question, go ahead and state that.
Can I show you a picture?
You can start down here with Ms. Fitzgerald, and you can come around this way if it's easier. I'm sorry.
This is for my back porch. And my lower line is right there where those
Okay.
flowers.
And you want it screened from view.
Yeah, I do.
If you would please start down with Ms. Fitzgerald and show her the same picture all the way down the line, please.
My line is right there.
Where's your property line?
Right there. Where those bushes are. Standing on the deck.
It's like 400 to 500 feet, right? Are you to the north or are you across the County Highway?
No, I'm right, I'm in front of them. Their driveway runs in front of that building on back of this side.
You're on the front side.
Yeah, I'm on the left.
Diane, if you would point your house out up here on the screen.
I think you can go, is it on the screen over here? No? Okay, sorry.
If you're looking at it, it's the house to the left that's kind of up toward the top of the screen.
Okay.
Yeah, it makes it look like it's really up. I think that, I can't tell.
Yes, the one that has the
Cursor.
cursor on it at this time.
I got you.
That's all right.
All right.
See, it makes it look like it's far like that, but it's not that far. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Place it. Chris, we place a cursor on the building.
And can you go down to where the building is? It's a little, it's up to the north of there, a little bit further, just right in that area, right in there.
Okay.
This aerial does not have this section.
So that greenery, Chris, is that a tree line or what is it?
There is a little gap from the back of the building to Mr. Ward's home. There's an open area that's, you can kind of see it over there. There's some tree lines, but there is a gap where, as you probably saw in her photo,
Yes.
that you could see to the back of that building.
Are there any other questions to staff or to the applicant?
So Chris, the buffer, the required buffer, number 4 stipulation, will that block out her house from the building or not? Or is it going to be a space?
I think it could, it will help. I don't think it will completely block it out because of the topography change. I believe her home is a little higher up in elevation than the building itself, and so she still may be looking down on some of the, but it should help some, at least a portion of that building.
But there's not an open space, it's just because the topography, her topography is at a higher elevation than where the building is that he's working out of, is that correct?
That's correct.
But, after some time, when the plant
But you-
leaving cypresses, those will get higher and get some height on them, and they'll be more beneficial, is that correct?
That's correct.
All right.
Are there any other questions to the staff or to the applicant?
Excuse me.
Board of Commissioners, any questions? Thank you very much. Ask at this time if I could receive a recommendation on application 2020-02-LUP.
I make a motion we approve of the 4 stipulations.
I have a motion to approve with the four listed stipulations from Mr. Aston. Do I have a second? I have a second from Mr. Henson. All in favor? Motion passes 4-0 and 1. And again, this is not the final decision. This is a recommending body. It will be forwarded to the Board of Commissioners for their consideration tonight. Chris?
Yes, sir.
Sure, I got that right.
Tonight at 7 o'clock.
I've said it before wrong, so.
Tonight at
So
7 o'clock.
Tonight's meeting of the Board of Commissioners, if you have an interest, the applicant must be present. And if you have an interest in the application, you should be. So at this time, we're going to take a pause and let the next
Switch out.
application come up.
You can.
Don't read the fine print, just sign it.
Hmm?
Application 2020-02 SUP, application by James D. and Christina L. DeFore for a special use permit to operate a wedding/event venue in an R2 suburban residential district. Property is approximately 22.492 acres in size, and the property is located in land lot 17 and 18 of District 1, Section 3, and land lot 1252, District 19, Section 3. It's on the west side of McBrayer Road, and that's just north of Weaver Road. And the address is 902 McBrayer Road. It's in Commission Post 2. And staff recommends 8 printed stipulations if this is approved. And we have received no opposition on this application.
Applicant's present.
Applicant is present.
If you would please come around and sign in, state your name, and address your comments to the chair. That would be me. You have, I guess I'm going to have to repeat this every time. You have 15 minutes to present. You may use all of that time or conserve some for rebuttal. Anyone wishing to speak in opposition to this application gets the same allotted time of 15 minutes, but at one time. And again, address your comments to me.
Jimmy DeFord. We have been residents of Paulten County for 32 years. Plan on being here where we live from here on. We thought about doing this for several years and finally taking the steps to do it. We hosted some family weddings at our property. We also own the 19 acres to the west of the outline piece that is also part of our farm.
And your use of this property for your purposes is outlined in red, is that correct? Is what I'm seeing here? Is it just that front piece?
What's outlined in yellow
Okay.
is the grounds that the
Gotcha.
venue will be on, but we also own what's inside the red
Okay.
also that adjoins it.
And have you been made aware of the 8 listed stipulations?
Yes, sir.
That staff has recommended. You're agreeable to those?
Yes, sir. I did have a question on one of them. It had said 8 events per month, and I didn't know during peak wedding season if that number could be increased or if that's,
I will consider that question with staff shortly.
Okay.
Are there any other questions to the applicant?
You're going to construct a pavilion, you know exactly where you're going to construct that on the property?
it will be, do you see the group of trees that's right above where it's at, the blue letters say 2020? It'll be right in that area overlooking the lake.
And you agreed to put in a dry hydrant for fire purposes?
Yes, sir.
Okay. And it'll be engineered and worked with the Paulten County Fire Department, is that correct?
Yes, sir. I've already spoke with Mr. Kendrick, I believe, and he said that if we get to move forward, that he would get with me on the drawings and what I needed to do.
All right. Any other questions to the applicant? Board of Commissioners, any questions? Mr. Robinson, do you want to address the question as far as his number of events in a given season?
Maybe 2 or 3, 4 more max during prime, like.
As you know, we have put a lot of review in this application, and when we look at these, we look at the size of the property, adjoining properties and such. In this case here, we would not object to increasing that to 12.
So change it from 8 to 12 events per month.
Mr. Chair.
Yes, sir.
Just for clarification, the applicant said during the peak wedding season, is this 12 events per month all year long, or is this going to be limited to what the applicant identifies as the peak wedding season?
Can I redirect that question back to the applicant? What is considered the peak wedding season?
Like mid-March through the end of June and then September and October.
I wouldn't, I don't know how the rest of the board feel, but I don't know that I would put that restriction in. I just, if they can do 12 months in January, that'd be,
12 events in January.
it's up to them if that's what they want to do.
Well, I tell you what, I'll leave that to whoever makes the motion. And we'll go from there. We have a request, though, from the applicant for 12 events, am I correct?
Yes.
During the season.
Or the year, if that's acceptable to the board.
That's going to be hard to regulate, in my opinion,
I can
so
see
that's
that.
the reason I don't want to put that as the peak as the regulation.
I just like the discussion of the season and a license and, never mind, go ahead.
I just wanted to clarify that because I didn't want to argue about it 3 years from now.
I understand. So I'll let the person who makes the motion determine how to move forward with that. Any other questions to the applicant? Thank you, sir. You may take your
Thank
seat.
you.
Is there anyone else here that would wish to speak on behalf of this application? Anyone here wishing to speak in opposition may have questions, comments, or concerns? At this time, I will entertain a motion with regard to application 2020-02-SUP. Again, the consideration for stipulation number 6 with the maximum number of events per month has been in question, so if you would, keep that in mind when you make your motion.
I make a motion to approve with the 8 stipulations, with number 6 being changed from 8 to 12 events per month.
Okay, I have a motion from Mr. Leggett to approve with all 8 stipulations with number 6 amended to allow 12 events per month. Do I have a second? I have a second from Mr. Aston. All in favor? Motion passes 4-0 and 1. Again, it's not the final action on this application that will be forwarded to tonight's meeting of the Board of Commissioners. Applicant has to be present for it to be considered. And we will take a brief hiatus while we get the next application in front of us.
O5Z. It's application by Richard Martin to rezone approximately 12.8 acres from A1 Agricultural District to B2 Highway Business District to construct a self-storage facility. The Property is located in land lots 103 and 114, District 2, Section 3. It's on the south side of East Paulten Drive and east of Mount Tabor Road. It's in Commission Post 1. Staff has recommended approval with 7 printed stipulations, and we have had some calls of questions, concerns, and such. Applicant is present.
If the applicant would please come around, sign in, state your name, and address your comments to the chair, which would be me.
Hello, ladies and gentlemen. What I see first here is that's
Sir,
not
if you'd
really-
state your name first.
My name's Richard Martin.
Thank you, sir.
That's not the correct property that's outlined in red there. Number
Right.
one, I guess,
That's the current zoning of the adjoining property,
okay.
and
okay.
so it's the property just to the
Just
to
the
the
right of that.
east. Yes,
Yes.
just to the east. Right.
Yeah.
It's actually showing us some green.
Yeah, it's what's
right
outlined in yellow right there.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. And we're not going to have, everything that's green right there, we're going to remain, the house is going to remain there, and I was just going to do some self-storage around that house. I also own the property that's highlighted in, well, not all of it in red, but that number 1 there, where the 2 acres that has the commercial buildings on it already. That is also mine. It used to belong to Ralph Martin. And my idea was to put a self-storage there. I'm not going to interfere with any creeks or rivers, or everything's going to be by EPA rules and regulations. It's all going to be permitted and through zoning, through engineers doing it. But my plan is to use my existing commercial entrance, so that's already been there for years. That's really about it. I mean, I'm trying to put a commercial facility there and get it rezoned before I can do that. It's been a really sore eye in that area for a long time, and we just want to get it cleaned up and make it look good for the county.
All right. Are you familiar with the stipulations that's been recommended? There's 7 of them.
Yeah, I am, and I'm kind of concerned about a few of them there. I'm not, is a decel lane required if I've already got a commercial entrance there?
You're making modifications to the property. I believe the DOT can require you to make the necessary upgrades for initial traffic, but I will defer to Mr. Jones, who's the department director for the DOT.
Yes, Commissioner, Chairman, according to the development regulations, it is required.
Okay.
Decel lanes.
Okay, all right. I would just need to get to figure out what that entails, you know. I'm not sure what's on that road. I guess that's all engineering.
Well, and part of that, this is simply to see if the proposed use
Okay.
is an allowable use. It does not dictate the final product that would be on the ground.
Okay.
That would happen after, assuming you get a favorable review from the Board of Commissioners and
Right.
from this board. You would then go through a plan review process
Yeah.
with the county, and aspects of the county would be there, such as DOT, water,
Okay.
telling you what requirements you would have to, and changes you would have to make to allow that project to move forward.
Okay.
Mr. Jones, do you have anything further you wanted to add since you have the mic?
That's correct. It's going to go through the plan review process to determine
I understand.
lanes for the ASO and stuff.
Okay.
That is actually the permitting process for
Right.
what you're proposing to do. This is to see if your proposed use is acceptable for the area.
Okay.
Mr. Jones, would that also possibly include a left turn lane on Mount Tabor due to the proximity of the intersection?
I don't believe that this is going to access Mount Tabor.
No,
No.
I'm talking, I'm sorry, East Paulten, not Mount Tabor. East Paulten, would it require a left turn lane?
Per the development regulations, yes, lanes are required for commercial developments.
So you wouldn't have any access to Mount Tabor, is that right?
No.
Are there any other questions to the applicant beyond, did you have any other stipulation you were curious about?
No. Everything else is fine.
All right, so you're agreeable to the stipulations listed? Are there any questions to the applicant from the Planning Commission?
You mentioned cleaning up the area of those old buildings that are there.
Mhm.
What are you planning to do with those?
They're just going to be leased out to commercial people, just whoever I can lease them to.
Okay.
When I get them all, cleaned out and, suitable.
They've been there for a while, haven't they?
Yeah, and they've really been run down. I mean, really run down. So it's being cleaned up as we speak.
Also, Mr. Bartley, if you don't mind me asking,
You're not asking for any access to Antioch Church Road, are you?
Antioch Church Road.
It's the,
Not
Isn't
from,
that
oh, yeah,
Antioch?
not at all, not to this property.
even though it does border your property, you're not asking access to it?
No, not so,
Okay.
not whatsoever. It'll be, my facility will be completely chain link fenced in, it'll be, nice paved, nice buildings. It says no power poles or lights, or I won't have anything except for possibly some, motion lights that would come on the front of the buildings here and there, just for people coming in, being able to see, if that's okay. But it's just gonna be a real clean, neat facility under a gated area. It's my plan.
Any other questions to the applicant from the Planning Commission? Any questions from the Board of Commissioners?
I asked Chris if you would elaborate any on stipulation number 4, maybe about the highway corridor overlay district standards.
Yes, Mr. Chairman, that's a stipulation that we wanted to put in there to pretty much remind the applicant that it's subject to highway standards, highway corridor overlay standards, which would provide landscaping along the front, and any buildings that is visible may have to have a certain type of stone or brick type facade on the front. Most of the buildings planned out there would be quite a distance from the road and may not be as visible, so.
You won't be able to see it from the road.
Yeah, it's a lot of it's going to be
There's a tree
shielded,
that-
but anything that's along the road there would be some landscaping and possibly some building material requirements.
Yeah, that tree line right there will buffer everything from the road. I won't build anything past that creek up towards the street, so all that woods there will remain.
I was going to
From my memory of being down there, there is a depression between the road and your property that will have to be maintained. Is that not true?
That's true. Yeah, there's a water that runs through it, and that'll remain. I don't plan on affecting it at all, or even getting near it. There's I think Paulten County is 50 or 75 feet from any 75 feet from any creek. So
From the stream bank.
I'll maintain all that. It's not going to be a very big facility. I don't plan on and it may even be done in phases. Just a little bit at a time. I'm not sure yet how I'm going. Depends on what we do here.
Are there any other questions from the Board of Commissioners to the applicant? Planning Commission?
How many units is going to be in this?
I won't know until I get engineers involved and see how much we can get in there on that property by leaving the house. Maybe 10 buildings. I don't really know. I mean, I'm just guessing, but because the buildings are 30 foot wide, and I want to keep 30 feet in between the buildings so 2 cars can pass or someone could park and get around. And it just depends on how the land lays out is how many I can put in there. I'll start that process after zoning is approved.
Any further questions to the applicant? Thank you, sir. You have time remaining. If there's a need, I'll call you back.
I have one other question, Mr. Martin.
All you're going to do is build buildings. You're not going to store any equipment?
No.
Vehicles, boats, anything like that?
No.
Okay.
All
Thank you.
indoor storage.
Okay, thank you.
Is there anyone else that would wish to speak on behalf of this application? I may have been remiss because we're having to do this in stages, just to explain that each side has 15 minutes total to present. The applicant is given an opportunity to begin, obviously, and any time left over they can reserve for rebuttal. Anyone wishing to speak in opposition or may have questions, comments, or concerns may come around, sign in, state your name, address your comments to me, the chair, and it's 15 minutes cumulative time.
Mr. Chairman, I'm Brenda Randall. I own the property at 237 Antioch Church, Spur. There's a little confusion about the description of that property in the letters that went out. It describes the property as A1, undeveloped, residential, a single residence. That property is actually a licensed stable with a land use permit that was obtained in 2001, and we have been operating there for almost 19 years. My concern is for the safety of the animals, the safety of the children that have been coming to that facility for lessons for almost 20 years. Anyone here who has been around horses or knows anything about them knows that when people start dropping trees and running bulldozers within 40 feet of their paddocks, that they're not going to react very well. I'm concerned about how this facility is going to affect my livelihood for this stable that I've operated for so long. I'm concerned about the wildlife that is going to be displaced and run across my property. There's also issues of there being multiple storage facilities already in the area, and the one that exists on East Paulten Drive now has a huge crime issue, and I'm concerned about that bleeding over onto my property. We've been there a long time. We came to Paulten because of an agricultural area that we could build our little horse farm in. We actually came when there was supposed to be an equine facility at Mount Tabor Park. Jerry Sharon talked us into coming, and then the facility was canceled after we got our land use permit. So we were locked in on the purchase. But I have a lot of years and dollars and sweat and tears invested, and I need some type of reassurances that this is not going to destroy my business. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Is there anyone else that would wish to speak in opposition or have questions, comments, or concerns? Please sign in, state your name, and address your comments to the chair.
My name is Stacy Shedd, and I live at 2152 East Paulten Drive, and that is right next door to the proposed property. The creek is what separates my property and the property that Mr. Martin is wanting to rezone. I've lived here my whole life. I actually grew up across the street, in the house across the street, and my two cousins are here, Carla Brown and Jennifer Matthews, and they also live across the street. We also own the 3 acres at the corner of East Paulten and Mount Tabor Church Road, and Carla and Jennifer also own additional property behind that, so we're heavily vested in the area. We also work in the county, so we live and work in Paulten, so we love Paulten. Several concerns that I have for the proposed zoning, of course, is traffic. Like I said, we grew up here, so we've watched it go from Route 7 to Dragstrip Road to East Paulten Drive, and we've watched growth. There are 3 schools close to my area: East Paulten High School, Roberts Elementary, as well as the College and Career Center at the Old Abney. Let's see. Roberts is 3/10 of a mile on Mount Tabor Church Road, and East Paulten is 1 mile and 2/10. And traffic from those schools do block my driveway and at the intersection. I'm also concerned about my property value. As you can imagine, we have 8 acres. I pay like $4,000 in property taxes, so I'm concerned about that as well. As Ms. Randall mentioned, we're concerned about the creek and the vegetation and the wildlife habitats that are there. I think Mr. Martin may address some of the signage that would be available. He addressed closed storage, lighting. Will the area be paved or gravel? That's also a concern, just of the aesthetics of the areas. We're watching it to grow. We also heard there's a proposed maybe idea of a subdivision come into the drag strip area, so that is more housing and traffic as well. A question I have for Mr. Martin would be, would the existing driveway to the Martin home be used as any part of the entrance into the facility? That's very close to our driveway and to our creek, so I'm concerned about that. Crime as well. And if any additional improvements to the road, would that affect any of our property? And I do have a drawing here, and it does show, I know it's just a drawing, but it's showing like 25 storage units pretty close to the creek. I know there has to be a buffer zone there, so I'm concerned about that and how close those are as well. And our proposal is we would like for anyone going into that facility to use the existing entrance that he has for the business that he's currently renovating. And
Say that again, please.
to get into the storage units that he wants to use the existing business entrance that he's using at the buildings that he's remodeling for there, and not use the driveway. I'd like the driveway to be gone. It's very close to our home, and our driveway as well for crime and just getting in and out. I did read that there would be operating hours, and just want to ensure that there's a gate for people to get in as well. And border from my property or the footage from the creek, what kind of border, Leland cypress, that we won't see it. Our house is kind of in a hole, and then Ralph's, or Richard's, sorry, Timmy Martin's, is kind of on a hill, so we're just concerned about how it's going to affect us. And I guess that's it. Just a border, and the lighting, and we would request that it be paved, but according to the drawings, it's 80,000 square feet, I think it said on here, and 25 buildings, so it's kind of substantial on this drawing, so.
Thank you, Michelle.
Thank you.
There's still time remaining if there's anyone else that would wish to speak in opposition to or may have questions, comments, or concerns. Please sign in, state your name, and address your comments to the chair.
My name is Fred Engel. I live off East Paulten. I live in the Sunset Peak subdivision, which is down a ways down the street, probably about a mile or so down the street from this area. My concerns is additional, which was already mentioned, additional traffic. East Paulten Drive has a lot of traffic on a daily basis, especially during the school year. There's a lot of young people driving down East Paulten Drive. There's a lot of buses going up and down East Paulten Drive, both from Roberts Elementary School, East Paulten High School, and also from East Paulten Middle School. So that's one of my major concerns, is this thing could add just additional traffic to what already is a lot of traffic on East Paulten Drive. We also have two storage areas, storage facilities right near this area. We have one that's located up on Highway 92, just off of East Paulten and Highway 92 intersection. We also have one that's down on Highway 92, or I'm sorry, on East Paulten Drive. That's been there for quite a while, has businesses on the front of it. So I don't see a real need to have another storage facility that close to already two that are within about a mile or so, a couple of miles of that The other concern I have is people driving in and out of there at all times of time during the night. It's how well lit is a place going to be? And that is another question, is if it's really well lit, it's going to light up the whole area, that area in there, and a lot of people that are probably nearby neighbors wouldn't like that too much. But again, how well lit, and is there going to be people driving in and out of there all 24 hours a day? Because a lot of places are open 24 hours a day if they're storing things. That's my main concern. Those are my concerns, is those storage area, that we already have storage areas in the vicinity, traffic, that type of thing. So.
Thank you, Mr. Engel. Is there anybody else that would wish to speak in opposition or may have questions, comments, or concerns regarding this application? Please come to the lectern, sign in, state your name, and address your comments to the chair.
My name's Carla Brown, and I'm speaking on behalf of my
Sorry,
husband.
could you repeat your name one more time?
Carla Brown.
Carla Brown, thank you.
Speaking on behalf of my husband, Jeffrey Brown, and myself. We live directly across, as does my sister. I think we're mainly concerned about the aesthetics of the business. I agree that improvement did need to be made from what it is currently. But in my mind, when I look at the plat and it says gravel, I'm picturing, what am I going to be seeing when I'm sitting on my porch? Is it going to be a MS Gober store all with chain link fence and gravel, which is kind of an eyesore? Or is it going to be more upscale considering the area that we're in? And I would hope, considering, the area of the county, that aesthetics and the thoughtfulness of the business will be taken into consideration. That is it.
Thank you, Ms. Brown. Is there anyone else that would wish to speak in opposition or may have questions, comments, or concerns regarding this application? Yes, you may.
I just wanted to add, if it was approved, that the changes would be made and recorded on the deed. If it went from A1 to B2, recorded what he was required to do on the deed, filed at the courthouse.
I may come to you for that one. Is there anyone else that would wish to speak in opposition to this application or may have questions, comments, or concerns? Hearing none at this time, I would ask, sir, Mr. Martin, if you would like to come back.
Yeah, I hope I can remember all of them, but...
Well, I'm going to help you through that because part of that is going to be addressing the questions that I ask you.
Thank you.
If there's anything that you would like to ask in rebuttal to what we've heard, that will count against your time, and you may do so now.
My plans are just like I said, everything's going to be asphalted. You won't be able to see it from the road. It will be fenced in, and I can just answer your questions as needed, I suppose.
That's fine. I'm going to try to get through these as I can. Of course, there are going to be other questions that will come from my members here of the Planning Commission and possibly also from the Board of Commissioners. Also, staff may be asked certain questions. I want to go ahead and address the last one, if we could, with Mr. Phillips, and that's regarding anything recorded to the deed regarding a change in zoning or use of property. Could you address that?
While the Planning Commission in the county would have the authority to place stipulations in the zoning district regulations, the county does not have any authority to place restrictions on a deed between private individuals. The only time the county would have that authority is if the county was either the grantor or the grantee on the deed.
Thank you. Regarding the aesthetics, I'm going to try to get through some of these, but first question, you've seen the 7 listed stipulations, and I've already asked you about those. Anything else that's added to that would be added to that list of stipulations. So I'm going to go back through some of the concerns that were brought up, and of course, if I miss anything, I'm sure I will be asked. But obviously, nobody wants to have the aesthetics around their home degraded by negative aesthetics to a neighboring property that's under development. So my question, you said that you were going to have the property asphalted?
Everywhere the buildings are going to be, yes.
And there's a
drives
stormwater
around the building.
Okay, there's a stormwater component to that as well, which gets into part of the concerns that were brought up, which is runoff from the property, visibility, protection of the stream that is there. There's a 75-foot stream bank buffer. And I would ask, are you familiar with the 75-foot requirement?
Mhm.
And you would not be infringing on that 75 feet of the stream bank.
That's right.
That's also a water quality protection.
That's true.
I believe, Chris, also there would be a retention pond
Yeah.
stipulation on that
Mhm.
also.
Which is
Would be-
required to contain all of the potential rainfall that is created by not just the asphalt, but also the rooftops,
Mhm.
so that you're not flooding your next-door neighbors or creating unnecessary runoff into the creek.
Yes, I plan on putting a underground retention system that will not affect any of the existing water.
Chris, can you specify where Ms. Randall is on Antioch Church Spur, what the buffer would be between B1 and her zone?
Absolutely. She is the property to the south right here. You'll see a zoning case number 2002-04Z on the map. That was where her and her husband rezoned to A1 back then, and that is their location. The buffer between the B2 and A1 or R2 district is 40 feet.
From the property line,
Undisturbed.
and that is from the property line.
That is from the property line.
I'm sorry, I just wanted to... On his side.
That
On his
also,
side.
sir?
Yes, I understand that.
Okay,
And I do plan on putting a fence up, so.
okay. Well, we've had some people have a problem with understanding what undisturbed means at times.
You can't cut the trees down, you can't touch it. I understand.
Correct. I'm going to ask a question of staff, as it was part of one of the comments made. But as far as number of facilities within a certain region, a certain distance from one another, is there any stipulation in Paulten County's development ordinances that restricts the number of storage facilities within a certain radius of each other?
There is not.
And I could say one thing to that is Paulten County is booming right now and has been for years. And I myself own a general contracting business. We do commercial hospital construction here in Paulten County for 25 years. And I myself tried to rent some storage facilities within a 10-mile radius. Every one of them are filled to the most capacity. I couldn't get anything. So I do know Paulten County is in dire need of more storage facilities, just from experience myself.
Well, my point in asking the question is there has to be an understanding. Would we be establishing a requirement that is not reinforced by the county's own ordinances? So I just wanted to ask that question of staff. As far as buffer, being planted buffer, would there be any intent on your part outside of the existing non-disturbance buffer to have a planted buffer for screening for what you have or what you would be putting in place?
I wasn't planning on doing it because you've got 40 feet of natural woods there already, and that would probably be more than enough, and a chain link fence.
And I'm going to come back to staff again with regard to the lighting requirement. There is a requirement that the county has in place so as to limit ambient lighting from properties. Could you?
That is correct. That is a part of the highway overlay district that would require a shielded or box lighting type. One thing to keep in mind that this is the portion, this application and the next application, which is a special use permit, coincide. This is the zoning change part. The second application is the special use permit for a mini storage facility. And in that condition of approval, if it is approved on the special use permit, we had limited the mini storage facility to wall lighting packs only and no pole lights, and that there would be limitations on gate hours from 6 a.m. to 10 p.m. And that's the next application coming up.
Got it. Are there any other questions to the applicant from the Planning Commission? And some of, we'll have additional questions with the hearing of the next application, but wanted to go ahead and see if there's anything with regard to the change in zoning. Are there any questions from the Planning Commission or Board of Commissioners at this time? Mr. Aston, do you have something?
One gentleman asked about people coming in all hours of the night, so Chris stated 6 a.m. to 10 p.m. And I'm sure it's going to be gated, and you have security cameras as well.
My plan is to leave the house there, and the people that's going to work the facility will live in the house and be there 24/7 to security, for security reasons and for business. They're going to work there. That's my plan. So, I mean, as far as worrying about any crime, trust me, it won't be near the way it was. I mean, I had to get like 6 people off the property that were just living, in every little shack they could get in. But it was terrible before. But there won't be any problem with crime. I know that.
Yeah, but what about, is it going to be gated?
Yes, sir.
It is going to be
It'll
gated?
be electric gate. It'll be either I'll do cards or a key or a code.
Okay.
The existing entrance that was used, is that where your main entrance is going to be?
My main entrance is where the big entrance coming in off East Paulten. So it'll come in and it'll follow that paved driveway. It'll come in right there and it'll come in the paved driveway towards the house. I really don't plan on using the existing drive. I thought about using it as an exit and, come in one way and go out another way, so we wouldn't have, but storage facilities don't have a lot of traffic. There really is not that many people coming and going in them all the time. They're just every so often somebody will come store something and they'll leave it there. So there's really not a lot of traffic other than just coming and going every once in a while. So in that aspect, I have to do a decel lane. I don't know what that incurs and even be able to use that second driveway as an exit. If it means I got to do more decel lines, then that means I'm not going to use that driveway.
I'm going to ask Mr. Jones, and again, this is just fishing right now, but it's about the requirement for A-cell, D-cell. Could you just tell us what that requirement would be as far as traffic storage? And do you know, off the top of your head, have you ever seen any studies for the number of trips that a storage facility would generally generate?
Typically, a storage facility draws it's a small trip generator. Using numbers from the Institute of Transportation Engineers, they do trip generation studies for all kinds of developments, houses, store-all, supermarkets. Typically for put it into comparison, a single-family home draws 9.72 trips per day. A store-all of this size, which on plan was shown to be 86,200 square feet, would draw 164 trips per day. Of those 164 trips, 9 in theory would be in the AM peak hour of the Main Street traffic, 15 would be in the PM peak hour. Regarding the storage lanes, that is in the development regulations. Under commercial, businesses have to put in A-cell, D-cell, or you call it a left turn lane, right turn lane, I would call it. It's a better way to term it. On collectors and arterials, it's specifically called out in the development regulations.
And those requirements are there for the purpose of trying to alleviate congestion caused by the development?
Yes, and safety also. When you have people who are stopped on the main road trying to turn in, let's say there's somebody coming the opposite direction, you're just creating conflict. So what you're trying to do with traffic is you're trying to eliminate conflicts.
Thank you.
That's my concern, whether or not there's going to be a left turn lane going west on East Paulten, because of the traffic coming through that intersection is going to prevent somebody from turning left. And that's really going to stack traffic up on East Paulten if there's not a left turn lane.
Like I said, that is definitely covered in the development regulations. It's spelled out specifically for collectors and arterials. And East Paulding is considered a minor arterial. Roughly, the last time we collected traffic data in that area, there was about 10,970 cars per day going through there, a significant amount. The road, in theory, to handle, acceptable traffic volumes, you're looking 15, 16,000 cars a day. That's when it really starts to degrade in terms of the level of service of the roadway.
Any other questions to the applicant or to staff from the Planning Commission? Board of Commissioners? Was there anything additional that you would like to add to your statement?
Is that all the questions, I guess? I mean, I definitely want to make sure that all the residents around there understand that I'm trying to better this piece of property in a visual and in a perspective look. I don't think they'll have to worry about anything like that's been there in the past. It's going to be a nice, clean facility. It will be asphalted. The buildings will be crisp, brand new. They'll be off behind the tree lines. And now that, I really didn't know about the 40-foot buffer, but that's really going to shrink it a little bit more than what I had intended on. So that's going to be less buildings than what I was going to use it, but which that's fine. But I plan on trying to better that whole area right there is what I'm trying to do.
Well, and you understand that there will be environmental requirements that you will have to meet if, and again, this is purely speculative, if this receives a favorable approval from the Planning Commission and then subsequently is approved by the Board of Commissioners, and that is if. I don't know how that's going to end up, but there will be environmental factors that you will have to consider and abide by in the development of what you're talking about.
I understand.
Thank you very much. At this time, I will entertain a motion with regard to application 2020-05-Z. Again, there are 7 listed stipulations.
I make a motion we approve the 7 stipulations.
I have a motion to approve from Mr. Aston with 7 listed stipulations. Is there a second? I have a second from Ms. Fitzgerald. All in favor? Motion passes 4-0 and 1. And I assume we will remain seated and hear the SUP side of the house.
Okay. As I said earlier, this application coincides with the one just voted on. This application, 2020-04 SUP, is application by Richard Martin for a special use permit to construct self-storage facility. The property is located in land lots 103 and 114, District 2, Section 3. It's on the south side of East Paulten Drive, east of Mount Tabor Road, Commission Post 1. That's also recommended 2 stipulations upon this being approved. And of course, the applicant's present.
The applicant will please come back around. I don't think you need to sign in, but you can state your name again for the record.
Richard Martin.
Thank you, sir. You have 15 minutes to present. You may use all of that time or conserve some for rebuttal.
I'm assuming this is exactly what we were just kind of talking about, but I'm kind of confused.
Well, one is for the rezoning of the property, which is required before you can ask for the special use permit for what activity you're wanting to conduct. There are 2 additional stipulations that come in that are being recommended on the SUP side of this application, and it will more directly address the use you're proposing.
Yeah, well, I plan on using it, going by the 2 stipulations, the 6 o'clock in the morning, about 10 p.m., that's fine. And I just plan on, tearing all the buildings down except for the house at this time and using the house as a living spot and cleaning it up and redoing it for an in-house person to live there or a couple to live there to look after the property and tend to everything there as far as security goes, and to take care of as an office, basically. And the buildings are going to be metal buildings if it's approved and everybody's okay with it. I haven't went through the processes yet of doing any designing or anything until I get through this, so.
There are standards in place at the county development regulations that you will, if this receives favorable approval, you'll experience those in plan review.
Okay.
And there is an aesthetic level of quality that you'll be held to,
Right.
as well as being able to buffer this property from particularly residential pieces, and agricultural for that matter.
I understand.
So you're agreeable to the two listed stipulations. I'm going to go ahead and ask if there are any questions
Okay.
from the planning commission to the applicant regarding the SUP application.
You just say you're going to tear the existing buildings down. Is that the
Well, there's some,
buildings there also?
yeah, there's some old outbuildings that, the garages and stuff that's just there that's around that house that's almost about to fall down anyway. So they're basically going to be all tore down, and the whole road will be taken up. It'll be completely redone, is my goal. So I won't be using, the house is on a well. It's also on a septic tank. I won't be even using sewer. I won't even be using water. So it's totally self-sufficient there other than power.
Any other questions from the planning commission to the applicant? Board of Commissioners, any questions? Thank you, Mr. Martin. You may take your seat. Is there anyone else here that would wish to speak on behalf of the SUP portion of this hearing? Is there anyone that would wish to speak in opposition or may have questions, comments, or concerns? If you would, please come back around. And as you've already signed in, simply state your name for the record.
Stacy Shedd. I just want to ask if it was approved, if the existing driveway into the house not be used as an exit, that just be taken away and closed, and keep all of the business up towards the intersection part where he'll have to add turn lanes and deceleration lanes.
I will ask that question. Thank you, Ms. Shedd. Anyone else may have questions, opposition, concerns? Hearing none. Mr. Martin, would you please come back to the lectern? There's been a request just made about the existing driveway to the house being closed off and utilizing the, I guess, formerly commercial drives that were already in place. Is that something you could consider?
I think I have to go through my engineering, when I engineer this piece of property to figure out the entrance and exit, what works best for the property. And if I do use it, I gotta know what DOT is actually, going to require me to do in two different locations. So it's probably not going to be used if I have to put a decel and 2 lanes in 2 different spots. So I'm assuming it's probably not going to be used.
Well, as a matter of this commission's consideration for the application, they can place a stipulation to where that would be essentially a requirement.
Okay.
What I like to do is find out if there is anything that you can think of that would immediately inhibit that being an agreement on your part.
I mean, I'm all for it. I mean, I don't have to use that driveway. It doesn't matter to me. I mean, I don't plan on using it, but I haven't been through my engineering group to figure out what their plan is to help me with this, designing it. So but I don't plan on using it at this time.
We'll also defer to Mr. Jones, understanding that question. Is that something that engineering, and looking at it from an engineering aspect, and from a roadway safety aspect, would that be feasible? And I know you're just looking at it at this point. I realize that.
Right. Again, access is typically determined during the plan review process. I will say access management is a buzzword, is a term that's used with DOT type work to try to reduce as many access points as possible. Get rid of conflict points. You try to put traffic in certain areas where you can see where you have good sight distance, have left and right turn lanes. We would look at the access during the plan review process.
Thank you. there any other questions to the applicant from the Planning Commission? Board of Commissioners? Did you have one, Mr. Davis?
I did, but Mr. Jones just answered the question about access management that I had.
Mr. Chairman.
Yes, Ms.
I would
Robinson.
like to offer a possible stipulation that was brought up earlier, and I think Mr. Martin would be agreeable to a stipulation that would, that he would agree to not have outdoor parking or storage for the warehouse facility. I think Mr. Leggett brought that up earlier.
He agreed to that.
And I thought that might be a condition. And one other thing I wanted to note for the record, the special use permit would allow a resident manager for this type of facility.
All right. Are there any other questions to the applicant from the Planning Commission? Board of Commissioners? Hearing none, thank you, Mr. Martin. You may take your seat. At this time, I will entertain a motion with regard to application 2020-04-SUP.
Move to approve, but two stipulations already, then added the third stipulation in there.
And that would be the no outdoor parking or storage. So I have a motion to approve from Mr. Henson with the existing two stipulation and adding the third stipulation of no outdoor parking or storage allowed.
Second.
I have a second from Mr. Leggett. All in favor? Motion passes 4-0 and 1. Again, this is not the final action on this application. It will be forwarded to tonight's meeting of the Board of Commissioners for their consideration. Applicant must be present for it to be considered. If you have an interest in it, please be present. Mr. Robinson?
Just had one announcement. I just wanted to recognize a new person for planning and zoning, and we are very gracious and thankful for her. And her name is Leah Wilson back here in the back, and I'm going to get her to wave at everyone.
Oh, do better than that. Please stand up.
We are very thankful for her. She's doing great.
I will say this, I'm very thankful for the hard work that's put in by the staff of Paulten County, both in planning as well as in the other departments that support this meeting. Without you, it would be near impossible to give any of these considerations and have the knowledge that we do. So thank you very much for your time and for your care. At this time, I'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
Make a motion to adjourn.
I have a motion to adjourn from Mr. Leggett. I have a second from Mr. Aston. All in favor? Motion passes 4-0 and 1. Thank you very much for your time and attention.